Hello my Lampwork friends, this is Anne. I am going to do a second little tutorial for February 2019 for the Lampwork Beginning Challenge, and that is on how to use fairly thin stringer. So I wouldn't say it's hair fine, but it's definitely finer than what I use for my scroll work. And I'm going to do what I call a doodle bead, which is just drawing different pictures and things, different designs I should say, on a bead with a stringer. So I have a base bead because it's February, it's a heart, and it is going to be my palette, or not my palette, my canvas. My palette is the colors I'm using. So I have a beautiful Rhea, which is the double helix cranberry pink, one of those deep pink colors that I just love. Now I could write something on this bead and it would look like I could write I love you. That would look cute, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some different designs with my fine stringer. So this stringer is bendable, but it's not completely bendable. Like if I bend it too far, it will break. A hair fine stringer you can pretty much manipulate and not quite tie into a knot, but close. So what I have here is a nice big canvas to work with. So I'm gonna put on a bunch of different designs. I'm gonna put a little step ladder. I'm gonna So I'm going to heat up my bead, and since this stringer is pretty fine, I'm going to lay my stringer down on that hot bead, and it's going to melt right on there. Okay? Since this stringer is fine, it does that. I don't have to worry about where I'm putting the stringer so much. I'm more laying it down. I'm not doing swirls right now. I'm just doing a line. So I can heat up the bead where I want the stringer to go. I put it down and I just lay it down. Now if I don't like the termination points on these little white that I'm using, I could heat it up if they're too big and pull off some of it, but right now I wouldn't say that they're too big. In between each time that I use this stringer, I'm going to nip off with my little wire cutters. That's what these are. I'm nipping off the end. It makes a prettier connection when you do that. It doesn't have to be done. Now if you want to melt in your stringer work, that's fine. If you don't, then to keep your bead nice and warm in all of its little spots, you want to heat the back side where you're not working, and then just kind of spot heat where you're putting this. Now I'm making a ladder, so I am going to put that down, heat it across, and then pull it off, and then tap it down. So I want it to stay there. If you don't tap it down, it doesn't connect as well. So I'm just using a little paddle that I have, and I'm patting it down. With these doodles, I mean, you can make arrows, you can make circles, you can do pretty much anything. And with the thin stringer, like I say, I wouldn't consider this a hair fine stringer. I would consider it's definitely at least, I don't know, a little under, maybe a little under a millimeter. In between each time that I lay down a stringer though, what I need to concentrate on is making sure this bead has some heat. It's a big bead. It's it's a decent sized bead, and if I don't have enough heat in it, it's just going to crack. One of these little heart things are going to crack off. And currently working in a studio out in my garage that is 9 degrees, so I have a heater on, I have multiple coats on, but the glass gets cold much faster in this outdoor temperature than it would, say, in your indoor 70-degree home, if you have the pleasure of working in a climate-controlled studio. So that is my little ladder that I put on there. Again, I'm heating up the spot where I want to put this, and I'm just laying it down, and then, okay, so I lay it down, and then I spot heat where I want to pull it off of the bead. So I have this nice little ladder, and again, I'm just doing doodles. So say I want to make an arrow on this side, okay, on this other empty little side here. I'm going to heat up my bead, and I'm going to lay down my stringer, and I'm going to put it through the flame to cut it off. I'm going to tap down that end there, make sure it stays. Nip off that end again. Keep my bead warm. So I'm heating the back where I'm not putting any of the stringer yet. I'm just heating that up. Now I'm going to go over to the other side where I want to make the arrow. I'm going to lay my stringer down. Heat up my bead a little bit. And nip off my end. If you don't nip off the end with this small of a stringer, it's probably fine. You're not going to have that big of a glob. You could also use the tip of your mandrel to clean it off, but it's better if you just go ahead and get into the habit. So now I'm heating up my bead where I want to lay this next stringer bit, and it's the line of my arrow. You can see now that I have a little arrow and a ladder on there. I don't know why I'm doing an arrow and a ladder, but I am. Now I want to do a, let's see, I do a spiral over here in this corner. So with the spirals, they're more like the scroll work that I showed you earlier, or that on a different tutorial for this month. You have to find that sweet spot of the flame and try and keep your bead out of it and your stringer in it. So, not my best scroll, but it's kind of cute. Now I'm going to put a, let's see, what else do I want to put on here? You can spend all day doing a doodle bead. I like them. I'm going to go on to the other side here and do, let's say, a had all sorts of ideas in my mind when I started this, and do another circle. So again, I'm keeping the bead out of the flame. Shouldn't say circle, it's a spiral. Melt that in a little. These guys are going to be melted in. You can leave them raised. I didn't do them well enough to keep them raised, so I'm going to go ahead and just melt them in. I think in the end I'm going to end up pressing it with my press that I used to create the heart. Just so I can make sure that it stays in the shape that I want it to be in. Another thing that you can do when you're doing the doodle beads is dots with your stringers, to leave little dots. That adds interest, especially when you mess up on a spiral. That's a way to fix a spiral, is to then complete it. Like if you missed a spot in your spiral, you can fill it in with little dots, and that kind of makes it look like you meant to do that, which is illusion is the key to success. So that is on there. Now on this side I'm going to make a, let's say, I'm going to run out of ideas. That's not a good thing. I had when I did these a lot, I had a palette of what I like to draw, and and do. So this one is getting too thick, this stringer, so I'm going to move on to another one. You always want to have multiple stringers ready in case you find that you don't like the size of one of them. So I'm going to do another ladder over on this side. So I'm heating the bead, heating the stringer, and then pulling it off. So that's a line. Maybe I'll just do lines. That's what I'll do. So I'll do maybe 3 or 4 lines. So I heat the bead, I lay my stringer down, run the flame over it, and then pull it off at the end there when it's hot enough to pull off. So I've got a couple of lines there. I'll probably put another 1 or 2 in there. Not very even, but it is what it is because it's on there now and it's too fine of a stringer to really move, and it's already melted in. So that is that side of the bead. So it's got a swirl, it's got some dots, and it's got some lines. The other side has a little ladder, a swirl, and some and an arrow. I think I'm going to add some dots on the other side too, maybe along my ladder here, to add interest in an empty spot. It's just a fun kind of bead to work with stringer with. Stringer is challenging, and the more you work with it, the better you get with it. If you're afraid of it and don't ever work with it, then you will not get any better. I'm going to make a heart on this side as well. So to make a heart, all you have to do with your stringer is add 2 dots next to each other. So you see my 2 dots next to each other. They're fairly decent sized ones. I'm going to melt them in a little bit, get them molten. And then I'm going to grab one and grab the other and pull down with my stringer as my tool. Now I don't like how far down this came. It didn't come down far enough, so I'm going to do that again. Oops, this is a hair fine. This one a little closer to a hair fine stringer with that one, so I'm going to have to pick up my stringer again. Heat off that area that I don't like and pull, and then tap down the end of this heart because it's not adhered to the bead. It's a little cutie. So I just added some dots on this other side, so I want to melt them in a little bit. Going to melt in all of the work that I have here because, like I say, it's super cold today, and I have already cracked this base bead, so I want to heal it with some extra heat, and to do that I have to have all of my work melted in. And then I'm going to run it into my dirty bead press here. It's got some, I find that when I use bead presses I tend to leave some of my bead release in them, and I don't want that on my bead, so I have to clean it out in between times. Alright, so now I'm gonna, since I put it in my bead press, it's got now chill marks, so I'm gonna heat out the chill marks. And if you take your time and you do one side, heat out those, let that side cool, and then heat out the chill marks on your other side, then you won't lose the shape that you just created with your press. Now if you have some lines on the edges, you want them to be melted in as well, so you want to go around the edges and this cutie is done. So it's got work on both sides. It's transparent so you can see through it a little bit to the other side, but not enough that it's gonna detract from the side that you're looking at. So I'll show you what this looks like in the comments under this video. Okay, thanks, enjoy.